to you and that booty. Tryna get to you and that booty. Tell me when to
got to pay me. Or pay me, no, never mind. Don't sit on the toilet when I go piss.
Do you think E-40 is a Bay Area hip-hop legend? Yes. But there's a little remembered truth that brilliant career almost never left Vallejo. He started with retail cassette tapes in his trunk, creating a language that the entire United States adopted, then rose to fame with Billboard albums and the hyphy movement. However, even with all of that, it still wasn't enough for the mainstream to truly open up to him. If you think you understand E-40, think again. Behind the iconic smile and history-making rap voice were moments as tense as a stretched string decisions, where a half step off could break a career. A journey that proves that in this world, luck sometimes weighs as much as, or even more than talent. And what if what you believe about his identity and location is actually much more complicated? Stay tuned, because the final revelations about E-40 will truly blow your mind. 1. The origin of an icon. No one can understand E-40's pain today, unless they've seen where he started. It sounds like a dramatic opening, but for E-40, it's an undeniable truth. Because before becoming a Bay Area icon, before sitting courtside as a Warriors insider, he was once the boy from Vallejo, where poverty, violence, and injustice were the first lessons of his childhood. Vallejo in the 70s and 80s was not a place where children were allowed to be innocent. It's a city where the sound of ambulance sirens is as frequent as the sound of church bells. Where every neighborhood is a map of vice, where black men have to learn to observe faster than they speak, and where a wrong look can end a life. E-40 grew up in that environment. My parents divorced, and my mother worked 3 jobs simultaneously to keep the house from falling apart. There's no money left over. There is no support. Only one child saw their mother walk through the door exhausted and had to wonder, how can I help ease that burden? E-40's childhood didn't include hand-in-hand trips to the park. There were no evenings when Dad told stories. It's full of moments where the child has to tell themselves, I have to become stronger than this situation. When you said, the older I get, the more immune I become to violence, it wasn't a cool rapper-style statement. It was an acknowledgement that violence had become so commonplace that it no longer startled him. A child who no longer knows fear has lost something that children should have, a sense of security. And if it weren't for music, E-40 would very likely have become part of the crime statistics rather than a cultural legend. Vallejo offered young black people 2 paths: slide quickly to the bottom, or find a way out at any cost. E-40 chose the second path. But escaping doesn't mean getting help. He's never been on a major label. There's no radio pushing the song. There's no powerful producer backing it. Those things are for rappers from the center, Los Angeles, New York, Atlanta. And E-40 started with the very thing every poor person starts with: the trunk of a car. Copying cassette tapes themselves, printing the covers themselves, driving from one parking lot to another and selling them one by one. No life preservers, only deep water and a man determined not to sink. E-40's fans aged 45-70 love him for this very reason. They know the feeling of doing it all yourself. They grew up in a time when you had to fend for yourself to get anything. When they saw E-40, they didn't just listen to music. They saw a younger version of themselves, no one to support them. But they still survived thanks to their will. But E-40 didn't just survive. He's creating a new road right now. When American hip-hop was divided between the East Coast and the West Coast, E-40 stood between Vallejo and chose what no one else did to create an entirely different branch. Hyphy didn't originate in a fancy studio. It was born from street energy, from the way Bay Area youth laughed through pain and danced amidst chaos. And E-40 didn't just rap within that culture, he became a leader of that culture. But what sets him apart from everyone else is language. In hip-hop, rappers use slang. But E-40 did something almost no one had done before he invented slang. He created dozens of new words so unique that not only did rappers reuse them, but the press, television, and even American cultural dictionaries had to acknowledge them. Fa shigadale, Captain Save a Ho, Yay area. These phrases bearing the mark of Vallejo have become common property of American culture. But their origin lies in a mind that refuses to follow anyone. That's why the Bay Area sees him as the father of culture. Because E-40's voice is the voice of the poor, the forgotten, those who have never been represented on the national stage. He introduced them to music, preserving the local nuances, not diluting it for easy sale, not changing it to suit tastes. But staying true to oneself means taking the hard road. Because when someone is too unique, the mainstream won't know where to put them. What once earned him respect, his difference also kept him forever labeled as a Bay Area rapper, rather than a national rapper. Then the biggest turning point came in 1995, in a major way. First solo album through Jive Records, RIAA Silver Certified, sold over 1 million copies. A feat at a time when rappers didn't have the internet to go viral. The album features a guest appearance by Tupac, a rarity that many people later considered a historical milestone. Mac Mal and Spice One, who know the streets of Vallejo as well as he does, also stood by him on the same project. In a major way, put E-40 on the national map. But it also opened up the biggest paradox of his life, that success made the industry look at him with eyes mixed with respect and skepticism. They thought he was good, but strange. Sells well, but difficult to understand. Timely, but not in the right format. In a major way, saved him from poverty, but not from the label of being on the margins. And from here, his life entered a peculiar gray area too large to be ignored, but too unique to be embraced by the mainstream. The very uniqueness that E-40 created, which made him a legend, also became the reason he was viewed as an outsider his entire life. Tragedy, when the peak makes you an outsider. Success should have made E-40 a national legend, but the world out there chose to do the opposite. After, in a major way, everyone thought the door to the mainstream would open wide. Finally, it's time for America to recognize a unique talent like E-40, isn't it? But no, the more unique an artist is, the more the industry backs away, as if they're afraid of being burdened with the responsibility of understanding someone who refuses to fit into their mold. With E-40, they said he was too Bay Area, too specific, too strange for the general public to understand. The flow is too fast, the slang is too thick, the Vallejo accent is too strong. In short, too many things that made us have to use our brains. And the funniest thing is this system is very afraid of people who make them think too much. There was a major record label in Los Angeles that almost signed him. They saw hyphy unique slang a lettering style unlike any other. They even thought they were the ones who discovered the rough diamond that would save the market. But when it came to negotiations, the smile faded faster than a flop single. The flow is too fast. Accent is hard to sell. Slang is difficult to understand. It sounds like market analysis, but in reality, it's just a single sentence. We only invest in what's easy to manage. And E-40, with all his God-given uniqueness, is the kind of artist who must be respected rather than molded, something this system absolutely hates to do. The contract was withdrawn before it could be signed. E-40 looked at that cold piece of paper and understood immediately in America, talent isn't the issue. The issue is that he's not easily packaged. And perhaps that was the most tiring stage when you realize you're right at the biggest door of your life, but you're pushed back just because you're too you. And this is where the satire cuts to the bone. E-40 becomes a living testament to society's harshest truth. Personal success and social recognition rarely go hand in hand. Society doesn't reward excellence. Society rewards usability. It's not the best artist who gets supported. It's the artist who best fits the mold someone designed beforehand. And E-40 unfortunately wasn't suitable to become the commercial version of the black rapper the market likes. In the Bay Area, E-40 carries the entire culture. But outside the 707 boundary, he was considered an uninvited stranger. While the LA rapper was praised for his swag and the New York rapper was considered raw, E-40 was told he was difficult to understand, not classy, and not suitable for TV. The world is truly fascinating. The same truth, just by changing the zip code, naturally transforms into an advantage or disadvantage. And yes, that is racism. Not the obvious kind like in movies, but the soft, polite, and most toxic kind. We don't hate you, we just don't choose you. Despite having 32 albums chart on Billboard, a number many rappers wouldn't even dare to dream of, he's still labeled a local act. He created slang for the entire United States to use, but he still wasn't considered equal to those who copied his slang. He creates the movement, and others use that movement to become stars. He built the bridge, and others crossed it. He paves the way, and others get the red carpet treatment. If the paradox wasn't painful enough, the industry is also very good at one thing: pretending to respect you. They called him legend, OG, hyphy old man, with a very friendly smile, but then whispered to each other things like, "Rap sounds like slang. Slang is hard to sell. He doesn't look good on TV. He looks a bit weird." A very American play, praising with their mouths, but closing the door with their hands. Any older E-40 fan would understand immediately. They have lived their entire lives in environments where the talented are considered difficult, where the truth is obscured by the word conformity. They looked at E-40 and saw themselves, people who always had to work twice as hard just to be recognized half as much. E-40 doesn't just rap about them, he lives their lives exactly. E-40's tragedy doesn't lie in failure. The tragedy is, he did everything an artist could. Created slang, created culture, created a movement, created a language, but was still ultimately viewed with the eyes of an outsider. When someone spends their whole life proving their worth but is still misunderstood, even a small touch can shake the entire universe they've built. And then just when everything seemed to be running smoothly, just one word was enough to bring down 30 years of reputation. A word is heavier than an accusation. A single word can destroy a black man's honor. Not a single word can be uttered without evidence. That very word opening the next chapter of E-40's tragic life. The word snitch is completely erased. 35 feelings. In hip-hop, the greatest pain isn't being hated, but being misunderstood by your own brothers. And with E-40, that's not just theory. It was a memory so painful that just hearing someone mention it still made him sigh, as if a part of his soul had been cut away and could never be reattached. The conflict with Richie Rich in 2020 sounds minor, but for people within black culture, especially the older generation, it's not small at all. It was an explosion. It's something that can kill a man's honor in just 10 seconds. When Richie Rich was being sarcastic and E-40 responded with a single word, snitch, it wasn't a curse. It wasn't an internet jab. That's the verdict. In the black community, especially among the 40-70 age group, calling someone a snitch is like destroying their reputation, crushing their image, and even putting them in real-life danger. It's heavier than lawsuits, heavier than fighting, and sometimes even heavier than death. And what hurt E-40 the most wasn't the scandal, but it was the person on the other side, Richie Rich, the brother he once called brother. They came from the dusty, hungry streets of Oakland and Vallejo. They understood poverty in the same way, rose from the same struggles, and became representatives of two generations in the Bay Area. They're not the rappers who met online type. They have an old-school bond, the kind of loyalty that young people today only see in documentaries. So when someone like Richie Rich pushes back, E-40 doesn't feel angry, he feels betrayed. And betrayal for older black men is a wound that never heals. You can overcome career drama, overcome musical beef, and overcome being misrepresented by the press. But betrayal is different. It hit right at the most sensitive spot, the fear of being misunderstood by the very people who once stood on the same side. And this story becomes a true tragedy because it reflects the deepest aspect of black culture honor. Outsiders don't understand how heavy the snitch label is. They thought it was a curse. But for E-40, it was a blow to 30 years of building the Bay Area's image of a true OG. Such a statement could ruin a career, destroy community respect, and even make those who have been silent for so long begin to doubt him. And older fans understand that faster than anyone, they grew up in a world where a false accusation could ruin a black man's life. But even more painful than the word snitch is the feeling, could my own brothers believe that too? It's a pain no rapper wants to mention, but E-40 had to swallow it. A pain that is both personal and symbolic of cultural rifts. Because E-40 and Richie Rich are not just two rappers, they are two milestones. On one side is Vallejo, on the other is Oakland, two lands that have nurtured an entire generation of artists. Their breakup made fans feel like the entire Bay Area was split in two. Two people kept the flame of a culture that only needed a glance to understand. Yet they still fell into a situation where one person suspects the other. It's not just beef. That is the tragedy of a community. It must be said part of the reason the scandal became serious is because of the soft malice of social media. People prefer to watch the drama rather than hear the truth. They prefer to push things further instead of letting the people involved resolve them. And it was during that time that E-40 felt the pain of being misunderstood, not just by a brother, but by an entire generation of young audiences who didn't know the past, didn't know loyalty, didn't know what he and Richie Rich had built together. The older generation sees him as an OG, while a bunch of online kids look at him and only see controversy. E-40 is someone who has faced the system of racial discrimination, been rejected, had his accent criticized, and been considered unconventional. But he has never given up. He's used to enduring injustice from people who don't know him. But to be suspected by the very person who once called him brother, that's a completely different level of pain. And in that turmoil, this story reveals a larger truth about hip-hop and society. Older black men always carry two fears: betrayal and misunderstanding. This drama hits both at the same time. It's not young fans, it's not social media, but the values they've cherished their whole lives: loyalty, respect, and honesty. E-40 didn't collapse because of the scandal. He was hurt because it proved what he had felt for a long time in this life. Not everyone who calls you brother will truly stand by you when the big waves hit. That's a lesson that his older fans, those who have experienced friends turning their backs, colleagues switching sides, and families being torn apart, understand deeply and immediately. And the bitter truth is this: throughout his career, E-40 was always underestimated by the industry, always doubted by the system, but he never thought he had to defend himself against those he shared a table with. That's why this scandal became a tragedy, not because of its scale, but because of its subject. But the real tragedy didn't stop there, because the biggest slap of his life didn't come from his brothers, but from the system itself. The system has always been ready to turn on a dime at the slightest provocation. One reason that sometimes has nothing to do with the truth, but only with the color of his skin and the land he comes from. And the next chapter is the moment that system chose the most cruel time to prove they were never on his side. A touch never heals. You spend your whole life creating your own voice, but then one day, you wake up and someone else is using it to make money. No one understands this phrase better than E-40, because for 3 decades he didn't just rap, he built a language, building each slang, each way of twisting words, each layer of culture that Vallejo used for self-identification. And yet, one day, he saw others selling his own slang as cheap souvenirs. The phrase, "Captain Save a Hoe," slang associated with his hit song from the 90s, unexpectedly appeared on the cover of a book published by a major publishing house. No permission, no credit, not a single word of acknowledgement. It's as if his language doesn't belong to him. To outsiders, it might just be a name. But for a black person who grew up in a culture where language is used for survival, that's a slap in the face. Because this isn't the first time. This is history repeating itself. Black culture creates something unique enough, and someone will always come along to take it, clean it up, package it, resell it to the white market, and the creator will still be left standing outside. Older fans understand this better than anyone else. They've witnessed this from the whitewashing of rock, the commercialization of jazz streetwear becoming high fashion, to hip-hop becoming a multi-billion-dollar industry where most of the profits don't go to black artists. So when E-40's slang was taken away, they knew this wasn't an accident. This is the common denominator of a system that is accustomed to using black culture as a production material. Slang is not a joke. In the black community, slang is history, it's memory. It's where they hide experiences that society never wants to hear. Slang is where they create value in a world that doesn't give them much to hold on to. So when a slang term is born from the nights he recorded in a cramped room in Vallejo, from the sweat of an entire community, from the laughter and pain of those on the margins, and it's turned into a book title to make money that's not a minor inconvenience. That's being stripped of the right to be the master of one's own voice. What makes this wound deeper is how the industry reacted with silence. No one stood up to defend him. No one pointed out that it was cultural appropriation. Some people even added salt to the wound. It's slang, whoever uses it first gets to claim it. A familiar fallacy of the system, when they don't want to acknowledge the profits they're making from the culture of people who have never been centered. And this is what makes fans who have followed E-40 for decades immediately understand why he's angry. Because they've lived their whole lives witnessing the same cycle. They create something too real, too powerful, too unique. Then someone else comes along, does it better, sells it better, and gets more recognition. E-40 is just the latest example of an old tragedy. The creator stands still, the resellers rise. That's why the slang incident isn't something to let go. It makes him feel that no matter how much he contributes to culture, the system can still take anything from him as long as it sells. No credit, no permission, not appreciated. Just take edit and call it of the market. And it was these kinds of simmering wounds that made the Sacramento case the final straw. People thought he was angry, just because he was kicked off the football field by security. But those who understand his life know it wasn't a one-time anger. It was the anger of 30 years of being looked down upon, of slang being appropriated of culture, being exploited of a lifetime spent proving worth in a system always ready to say, "We don't hate you, but you don't fit the image we want to sell." Those small cuts accumulate over the years, accumulated with each instance of stolen effort, accumulated each time the industry scoffed because he was too Vallejo, accumulated each time white people used slang he created without knowing where it came from. And then, all those cuts together became a ticking time bomb, and it exploded that very night in Sacramento. A night that was thought to be just an argument between fans and security. But for E-40, it was a brutal reminder that even though he gave a voice to an entire generation, the system is still trying to take that voice away from him. And the question now is no longer, has that slang been stolen yet? But rather, how many more times will America take what black people have created and pretend it never belonged to them? The truth no one dares to speak. Sacramento nights don't start on the court. They start when E-40 was born. The statement sounds harsh, but it accurately describes what's happening. Racial profiling isn't a temporary incident, but a social mechanism that has existed longer than E-40's career. As the video went viral online, people only saw an artist being escorted off the stage, but no one bothered to look deeper into what was really happening. How skin color determines who is seen as the instigator and who is seen as the victim, even when no one remembers what the original dispute was about. It wasn't the first time, and it certainly won't be the last. In American society, the default reaction hasn't changed. When a black man responds calmly, he's seen as aggressive. When a white woman is loud, she's seen as needing protection. Racial profiling doesn't require analysis, evidence, or reason. It only takes a shape, a skin color, and an assumption dating back over 200 years. Black men. Dangerous. And the worst part is that people repeat this unconsciously, like a programmed reflex. E-40 was not ejected from the court because he stood for too long, not because he caused a disturbance, and certainly not because he lost his temper. The only reason is that you look like the kind of person this system is always wary of. Despite the fact that he was booed before, despite the cameras showing him speaking calmly, despite witnesses confirming there was no warning, the security decision was made in just 20 seconds. 20 seconds, shorter than a hook in his rap song, but enough to determine the entire situation in an unfavorable direction. They don't check the video, don't ask those around you, didn't follow the correct procedure. They looked at a scene, saw a black man and a white woman arguing, and that's how they made their decision. Quick, concise, and accurate, reflecting the instinct of a society accustomed to blaming a skin color. The irony is, the viewers of the video think they understand what's going on. They saw security escorting E-40 and immediately assumed he must have done something wrong. It's not because they have evidence, but because they're used to the social framework. When security acts so quickly, there must be a reason. This is racial profiling at a deeper level, the level at which people receive information unfairly without even realizing they are being unfair. And this is the most painful part. Everyone knows E-40 is a loyal Warriors fan. Everyone knows he sits on the sidelines in a seat that not just anyone can buy. Everyone knows he was invited to the White House with the Warriors when they won the championship. But all of that didn't help him avoid the reflex of racial discrimination. A lifetime of contributions to Bay Area culture. A lifetime of dedication to the community. But with just one shout honor can crumble instantly. He spent a lifetime creating slang for America to use. But when he needed to protect his reputation, that slang didn't help him more than a scream from the mouth of a white woman. The funny thing, in a sarcastic sense, is that security and the system behind them did exactly what they always do: avoid apologizing. They use the phrase "under investigation" as if it's a polite way to delay admitting a mistake. They say they are acting to ensure safety, as if they are protecting the entire stadium from a potential danger. But what they avoided most was admitting a simple truth. They looked at E-40 and reacted according to pre-existing biases. And for the black community seeing that scene, you knew exactly what was happening. Because this isn't the first time. That's what they've witnessed their whole lives, having to work twice as hard, stay calm 3 times as much. And when disagreements arise, the chance of being believed is almost zero. For E-40, it was even more bitter. You're not a stranger. He is the one who dedicated his entire career to putting the Bay Area on the map of American culture. He is the person the Warriors themselves were once proud to introduce. But the moment prejudice appears, all of that vanishes. Another bottleneck lies in how society handles images. People saw the video and thought they were witnessing an incident. But for black people, that's not an accident. That's the system that's running. Racial profiling wasn't just about that night. It's been a problem for generations. It didn't start with shouting in the yard. It started with assumptions passed down from generation to generation, to the point where they became reflexes. And that's precisely why millions of people watch videos, but don't understand what they're seeing. Ultimately, the tragedy wasn't that E-40 was kicked off the field. The tragedy lies in the fact that he was denied the benefit of positive doubt, something a white person always has by default, while a black person has to fight their whole life to hope to achieve. And the greatest tragedy lies in this statement: millions of people watched the video of the Sacramento night without understanding what was really happening. How do people not know? A legend banished from the very place he helped build. So, what did we miss? There's a question that has never been seriously answered. How could America witness E-40 being dragged out of a playoff game like a common troublemaker, and then pretend as if nothing was wrong? A person who dedicated 3 decades to the Bay Area, who was considered family by the Warriors themselves, who was present for every glorious moment of the team, but with just 20 seconds of misunderstanding, he was immediately pushed out of his seat, as if he had never existed. That's the question the video title poses. How do people not know? It's not because I don't see it, but because they've never bothered to look closely. The truth is, this story is important, not just because it's E-40. It's important because it exposes something people try to hide. Prejudice doesn't disappear just because you're successful. People often say, success will erase all prejudice. Sigh. E-40 is living proof that sometimes the greater the success, the deeper the prejudice. You can contribute to building culture. You can enrich the city. You can put the Bay Area on the hip-hop map. But all of that won't save you in the moment when others only see your skin color, appearance, and differences. And that's what makes E-40 fans angrier than any scandal. It wasn't because he was fired, but because of how he was fired quickly, coldly, without giving him a chance to explain. It's as if his 30 years of dedication weigh less than the words of some random disgruntled white audience member. A familiar scenario for black people. The accuser is always believed first, and the accused is always viewed with suspicion. Especially if that person is a black man, and even more so if that person is famous, successful, and has a voice. Because this society is comfortable with black artists when they are on stage. But when they step out into real life, people want them to know their place. The scariest thing is that so many people watched that 20-second clip and that they understood the whole issue. But if you don't know what's behind that clip, 40 years of prejudice, 30 years of dedication, hundreds of times being seen as too different, too loud, too Vallejo, too black for the media's liking, then you're only seeing the surface. Because in those 20 seconds, no one saw the entire journey that came before a child growing up, amidst poverty and violence, fending for himself to survive. An artist paving his own way without radio or label support. A man creating a movement, creating slang, creating culture, only to be repaid with suspicious glances the moment he stood up to defend himself. That's the most painful part of the story. They only saw the last 20 seconds. No one saw the first 40 years. And that's precisely why so many viewers misunderstood the story. They think this is a minor incident. They think this is just a matter of standing in the way. But if you live long enough in a system that always prioritizes the stronger, the whiter, the more acceptable side, you'll understand immediately this is not an accident. This is the result of a decades-long discriminatory model. A model where a black man can contribute to building a community, but can still be kicked out of that community simply because someone doesn't like the way he stands. And then the biggest question arose. Why was someone as important as E-40 treated like a nuisance guest? The answer lies within the very system we live in. This society does not reward true excellence. This society rewards manageability. And E-40, with his original Vallejo essence, his powerful voice, and his uncompromising identity, has never been easy to manage. In music, he created something new. In culture, he breaks the mold. In life, he doesn't bow his head. And with a system accustomed to controlling black people with unspoken standards, that's a problem. So when someone asks, how do people not know? The answer is very clear. It's not because they can't know. And that's because they don't want to know what makes them face the uncomfortable truth more. That their impression of social justice is only true when it doesn't touch skin color. And when we say this story is important, it's not just because E-40 is a legend. And that's because what happened to him is the spotlight version of what's happening silently to millions of anonymous black men out there. They had no cameras to record, no media coverage, and no community to stand up and protect them. So if the world can get rid of someone who contributed to culture, like E-40, imagine what's happening to those who don't have a voice. E-40 was not ejected from the field. He was pushed out of a story where he should have been the leader. And the final question, the most painful one, is, if America can push E-40 out of the very place he calls home, how many others are being pushed out of this life without anyone knowing?
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast. There is still so much more to explore: stories of resilience, legacy, and the truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.